Okay, continuing on after my battery has been replaced. It is now 10 hours later. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so we left off with this quadratic right here. X squared minus 10x plus 25 equals 0. So let's put this into our quadratic formula and see what pops out. So we've got a negative 10 plus and minus the square root of 10 squared minus 4 times a is 1 times c is 25. All divided by 2a, which is 2 times 1. Okay, so this becomes a plus 10. So we've got 10 plus and minus. Now let's take care of what's in here. Okay, so 10 squared is 100. 25 times 1 is 25, as far as I know. 25 times 4 is 100. So 100 minus 100. So underneath the radical is 0. Now we already know that that means that we're going to have one unique answer, because 10 plus 0 and 10 minus 0 is 10. Divide that by 2 and we've got 5. So x is equal to 5 in this case. So one unique answer. So that means that we have we'll put it down here, a parabola that comes, and let's see, this one opens up because it's positive. So it meets it where x is equal to 5. So it looks something like that right there. That's what this parabola looks like. All right, so it's good that we had one of those. Let's see here. Now in the book, they've got a lot of times they'll use spreadsheets for stuff like that, and I don't go into that because I don't know, what spreadsheet version they're using, because it all changes depending on which one you're using and everything. It's just better to go ahead and do it out. Now, if you have let's see, which ones do it? A TI-89 and all of their variants, like the titanium and all that stuff, they will solve quadratics for you. But it's not that hard to do it just by hand. Okay, so let's take a look at page 504. And let's look at number 7. This is an interesting one. So what we have is we have x squared minus 10x equals 0. Okay? So here's a case where c is equal to 0. All right? There is no c, so c is 0. So let's go ahead and solve this. There's more than one way to solve this. So let's go ahead and just use the quadratic formula the way we've been doing it. So minus 10 plus and minus the square root of 10 squared minus 4 times 1 times 0. All that divided by 2a, which is 1. Okay, so this becomes 10 plus and minus. So 0 times 1 is 0, times 4 is 0. 10 squared is 100. So 100 minus 0 is 100. So the square root of 100 divided by 2. Square root of 100 is 10. So I have 10 plus 10 divided by 2. And I have 10 minus 10 divided by 2. So 10 plus 10 is 20. 20 divided by 2 is 10. 10 minus 10 is 0. And so our two answers are 10 and 0 in this case. Ta-da! Now, another way to solve this one, which is maybe a little quicker. So x squared minus 10x equals 0. If you notice that there's an x in each of the terms, I can factor that out. Now, we didn't talk about factoring, so that's why I want to talk about it now. There's an x in both of these terms, so I can factor out an x. And x squared divided by x is x minus 10x divided by x is just a 10, still equaling 0. Okay, so now how do we fix it from here? So this times this is equal to 0. So if either one of these two are 0, then the whole thing's going to be 0. So in other words, if x was 0, it would be 0. Because 0 times that, doesn't matter what this is. If x is 0, then this whole thing is going to be 0. If this is 0 in here, then 0 times x is 0. So it doesn't matter which one of these is 0. So I'm going to set x equal to 0 and x minus 10 equal to 0. And I'm just going to solve for x in both cases. Well, this one's already solved. X is equal to 0. That's what we got there. And then I'm going to add, I'm solving for x here, so I'm going to add 10 to both sides. So here I have x is equal to 10. Same things that we got right there. So it didn't matter which way this was solved. As long as you do it properly, then you're all right. So let's take a look at one of the ones that we did in the previous section. I can remember one right off the top of my head. It was x squared is equal to 144. Okay? So let's use the quadratic. Now this is a little bit of an overkill, but I'm just going to try to show you that you can still use a quadratic formula even to solve something like this. But first it has to be equal to 0. So I will say x squared minus 144 equals 0. Now, in this case, A is 1, B is 0, and C is minus 144. So let's set this up in the quadratic. So minus 0, I only put that there as a placeholder so you can visualize it. Plus and minus the square root of 0 squared minus 4 times A times C. All of that divided by 2A, or just 2. All right, so let's take a look at this. Oops, forgot a parenthesis. Take a look at this under the radical here. Negative times negative is a positive. So 4 times 1. Four times 144 is equal to 576. take the square root of that. So that's 24. So what I have here is plus, the square root of 576 is 24, so plus 24 divided by 2, and the other one would be minus 24 divided by 2. So this would be a 12, and this would be a minus 12, which is the same thing we got by taking the square root of it. Square root of 144 is 12, so we would have plus and minus 12, plus and minus 12. I know that this is overkill for that problem, but I'm just trying to show you that all quadratics can be solved using the quadratic formula. Now, some of your terms might be 0, but you just put a 0 in wherever that would be. Okay? So let's see if there is another one here. So I want to do one more, and I want to do one that's we have to set up first. So let's take a look at number on page 504. Oh, which one looks good? At the bottom, page number 504, let's do 42. So 2x squared plus 3x equals 20. Okay, so that is not in quadratic form yet. I need to subtract 20 from both sides. Remember, I need a 0 over here. So 2x squared plus 3x minus 20 equals 0. Okay, so this is going to be a negative 3 plus and minus the square root of 3 squared minus 4 times 2 times a negative 20. Extend that. All of that divided by 2a, 2 times 2, which is going to be 4. Okay, so let's analyze this down here. So negative times negative is positive, so underneath the radical we're going to have 9 plus something, so it's going to be positive. So 20 times 2 is 40 times 4 is 160. So what we have here is 9 plus 160, so that is 169. So what I have down here is a minus 3 plus and minus the square root of 169 divided by 4. The square root of 169 is 11, 12, 13. I'm almost positive. The square root of 169 is, I can't believe I even remotely second guessed myself on that one. So, minus 3 plus 13 divided by 4, and then a minus 3 minus 13 divided by 4. So, let's see here, I'll write it over here. 10 divided by 4, which simplifies down to 5 halves. And then a negative 16 divided by 4, which simplifies down to a negative 4. So my two answers are 5 halves and negative 4. Now, if you felt like it, if you felt froggy enough, you could take these two numbers and put them both in for x. Put the negative 4 first, put it in there, then solve it, you'll get 20. And then take the 5 halves, put it in for x, solve it, and you will get 20. So if you felt like going back in that manner, you could do it. If you felt like, you know, like you're sitting around and you're bored one day and you want to do some math, like everybody does, everybody gets the itching feeling to do more math, you could go ahead and substitute that back in. And if you do it properly, it'll work out. Math is fun. I believe that.